That's my mum, that's my young mum.
Lynn Bowen has always suffered with depression. Her daughter, Angela Rayner, describes it like being in a black hole.
Just nothing. It's just pain, nothing. Like, she can't move. She doesn't want to be here. She doesn't want to live. It's just real deep, deep sorrow.
They didn't know then that the sorrow was caused by bipolar disorder, an illness that causes extreme mood swings, with manic highs and crippling lows.
For me, it wasn't a title or a condition. It was more, why is my mum different? My friends, their mums were able to do these things for them.
What were those things?
A mum that would get up in the morning, would have their clothes ready for them for school, that would make their breakfast.
Bipolar typically emerges in the late teens, but Lynn wasn't diagnosed till her mid-30s, and that is not unusual. According to the charity Bipolar UK, more than 1 million people are living with this illness, but shockingly, it takes 9.5 years on average to get a diagnosis. The Royal College of Psychiatrists are now saying that delay must be cut in half, warning of a lost decade in which people can lose jobs, relationships, homes and lives.
I'm not saying when he was getting married.
The impact of this illness is something I understand well, because my brother had bipolar disorder. He was a brilliant musician and artist, but sadly, he'll never know my children because we lost him at 37 for reasons linked to this mental illness. Like for Bowen, there was a long delay in diagnosis.
If my brother had had a diagnosis 10 years earlier, I think he'd probably be alive. If your mum had had a diagnosis 10 years earlier, do you think it would have changed your childhood?
My mum has spent weeks in hospital where she didn't have to be in hospital, and I think if she'd have got the intervention early on and the support early on, she wouldn't have ended up in that crisis point.
More dopamine neurons towards the back of your brain.
A leading expert at King's College London, whose work includes monitoring changes in the brain, warns that for years doctors may prescribe depressed patients with antidepressants that could make their bipolar worse by triggering mania.
We have effective treatments, we've got effective interventions for people that they're not getting access to for that 9.5 years.
Samir Johar is proposing using artificial intelligence to scour health records to try to pick up bipolar earlier.
Is this delay devastating?
Oh, it's huge, because this is happening to people in their late teens, early 20s. You're developing your relationships with peers, you're developing your life.
This brain scan belongs to Sam Swidzinski. Sam's symptoms began as a teenager. First he was low, then high, with a mild mania that involved a lot of alcohol and obsessive running.
You know, I wanted to be the fastest person to run around the whole world.
Literally run around the world?
Yes, and you know, I was starting to come up with plans actually on how I'd run over the water.
Then came the lack of sleep, irritability and full-blown psychosis.
That was really, really rough. You know, I was hallucinating, seeing things that weren't there, also hearing things that weren't there. I had strange, very peculiar delusions.
Losing friends and unable to work, Sam signed up to a research project involving Samir, a decision that resulted in a bipolar diagnosis after 4.5 years, not 9.5.
If you didn't get that earlier diagnosis, what would have happened?
I don't think I would be alive today. There's many different ways I could have died.
34% of people with bipolar try to take their lives during that prolonged delay in diagnosis. But Sam describes how mania can be life-threatening too, like when he took on 6 men in a nightclub or tried to drink a litre of rum.
It's just I had no concept that if I down this whole litre of rum right now, that it could lead to a negative consequence.
But with a diagnosis and medication, things took a turn. He studied psychology and is now doing a PhD on bipolar, working with Samir, who he says saved his life.
What about friends and relationships?
Well, I'm married. That's a massive one.
Angela used to get angry at her mum's behaviour, but she understands it now.
In her darkest hours, she tried her best. My mum did an excellent job despite all of that, and I love her even more knowing that how much that affected her, that she still was there and she never gave up on us.
But so often, there is not a happy ending.
So my boys, I've got them learning the guitar.
Oh, so they've got his guitar, yeah. That's lovely.